There are several types of violence, and not just one form of violence. There is the physical violence, the moral violence, and the psychological violence. The types of violence are closely associated with the type of sex. One more associated with males, the other two more associated with females. The physical violence is more associated with the type of violence most practiced by men, while moral and psychological violence is more associated with the type of violence most practiced by women. Not invalidating that the type of violence most practiced by men, on an exceptional basis, is also practiced by women, and the type of violence most practiced by women, on an exceptional basis, is also practiced by men. And when our society, especially the media and our judicial system, choose only to talk about physical violence, almost treating it as the only form of violence that exists, ignoring other forms of violence, and the relationship that exists between them and the gender to which they are naturally associated. What they are doing is deliberately attaching the practice of violence only to the man gender, as if it was a specific characteristic of men. While not considering psychological violence and moral violence, curiously the forms of violence most practiced by women, as forms of violence. In order to dissociate the practice of violence from women gender, forcing us to believe that violence is an exclusive practice carried out by men, and only men should be held accountable for the practice of violence.
This is the reason why we only hear these people talking about toxic masculinity, and we don't hear them talking about toxic femininity. For the same reason why we hear these people talking about domestic violence against women, and we don't hear them talking about domestic violence committed by women against men or children. For the same reason why we hear these people talking about the Oedipus complex, and don't hear them talking about the Electra complex, to create the idea in people's minds that only men are sexually perverted. For the same reason that we hear these people talking about men's unhealthy habit of gambling, even considering it as a mental disorder, and we don't hear anything about women's unhealthy habit of overusing their cell phones. For the same reason we hear these people talking about men's violent behavior while driving, and hear nothing about women's toxic spreading behavior in the workplace. For the same reason we only hear these people talking about women's rights, and we don't hear them talk about men's rights, as if men's right to live is something our society should take for granted. But in a gynocentric society like the one we live in today, this sexism against men is what we should expect from those demagogues who govern it.